Imagine that you are knee-deep in data, striving to find the elusive invoice numbers from sheet 2 for specific periods and regions. The catch? The only reference you have is tucked away in a single cell in the form of a text, and that text too is surrounded with unwanted tags as is visible from invoice reference column. Now what you're going to do? No more VLOOKUP, it fails. So join me as I take you through this journey as we crack the code and develop a formula to outsmart even the mighty VLOOKUP. I was doing some data analytics that I came across a situation when I had to find invoice numbers against a certain period and regions. Now the problem was that the period and the regions were stored in a single cell, and they were stored in an invoice reference like this. There was a text, it had the period, it had the region, but there was other text surrounding it as well. So VLOOKUP function over here failed. I could not use VLOOKUP function over here. So I had to come out with a solution. Now in column E, I want all my data. I want the invoice numbers against certain periods and certain regions. So I have a data over here. I'll just delete it all for now. Now I'll start typing the function. We'll start with index function. What index function does is it returns a certain value that is at an intersection of a particular row and particular column. Now to do that, first we start the brackets and give in the index function the reference from where it wants the data. So now the reference will be the data that we want to bring is in from cell C3 till cell C18 in room number 2. So I'll select these and I'll lock this range as well by pressing F4. Now I'll press the comma. Now index function is asking for the row number as well. Our row will be specified by the certain two criteria that we are going to set. So for criteria, we'll make use of the match function. We'll start typing in match. Now the match function wants the lookup value. The lookup value, we'll set the lookup value as 1 because we want the first row that will meet a certain criteria to return a value. We'll press comma, and now the match function is asking for the lookup array. Our lookup array is not simple because our lookup array will be formulated by the two criteria that we're going to set. So for that, we'll start typing in our first criteria. After the two criteria, I'll use the separator, that is our bracket. We'll start the bracket, and now we'll start typing in our first criteria. Our criteria will be dumped in this formula using two functions, that is number and search. We'll start with the is number till return if a value it return true or false if the value is a number or not. And inside is number, we'll type search. Now search is actually going to do the main part of our function. Now search wants the text that we want to find. The text of our first criteria is placed in column C in the cell C3. That is the period. So we'll type C3 over here. We'll press comma. And now it wants the area where we want our text to be searched from. So we'll go to room number 2 and specify cell B3 till B18 because that is where it will look up for our text. And we'll lock this as well. Okay. Now we'll close the brackets to close the search function, close the brackets to close the is number function, and close the brackets to close our first criteria set. That was our separator. Now to start typing our second criteria, place the static sign over here to separate the two criteria, and I'll start with the second criteria. We'll repeat the exercise of is number and search. Is number, then bracket. We'll start with search, then a bracket, and then I'll specify our second text that we are going to find out, and that is our region, and cell D3. I'll type D3 over here, then comma, and now, sorry, D3, comma, and now we are going to find, specify the range where it wants to look for this text. The range is again the same, B3 till B18 in room 2. I'll lock this by pressing F4, and I'll close the bracket to close the search function, close the bracket to close the is number function, and now I'll close the bracket to close our second criteria separator as well. Now, a lookup array function that was the most complex one is complete.
Now I'm saying it again. Don't get overwhelmed with all this. I'll explain this and I'll break this out in a bit. And now the match type function. Now the match function is asking for the match type. We want the exact type, exact match. So we'll type 0. So now when I'll close the brackets, it'll close the match function. And now then again, I'll be closing the bracket to close the index function. Now what I think is my formula is complete. When I'll press enter, what it does is it returns the invoice number. Now when we search for March 23 and OHO, it is the same invoice number that is over here. It is 752,548, 752,548. You've got the invoice numbers. You can drag it down to actually paste the formula down there as well. And now you have all the invoice numbers against a specific period, against a specific region, and you can play around with this. So now let's jump to our explanation portion. Now in explanation, we used the search function, isNumber function, match function, and index function. I'll start with the search function because that was our main part. It returned a number if the cell had a certain text, two criterias. If a certain text was found against those two criterias in a cell, it returns a number. So if the text was not found, it does not return a number. If we dump this formula in isNumber function to return true or false if a number was found. So if a number was found in a cell, now our function returned true value. And when we dumped this inside the match function, what match function did was returned of that row in or criteria was met. Now, when we dumped that inside the index function looked at the row number and it returned the value from the adjacent column of that certain row that we specified through our criteria. I hope it was very helpful, and that was it for now. If you have any questions, you can place them in the comment section. So see you later.